All right, onward with the Sun Belt, and we are going to continue our conference previews with, maybe the most traditional college football conference in the FBS. This is a conference that has never been worried about big markets. They're focused on regionality, strong rivalries, and just really good football programs, and it's made them, at least to me, the most endearing conference in the country. Now, before we get into it, you should know by now, like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the podcast, because I do shows over there that you won't be able to get here on YouTube. And of course, tell me in the comments your thoughts on these teams, who you think is going to win the conference, etc. If you want to keep up with my bonus content during the season, my stats, projections, picks as I make them, bonus podcasts, etc., you can sign up at bettingcfb.com, $5 a month, or it's $50 for the entire year. Now, for each of these conference previews, I'm going to give you 3 reasons why your team might go over, or why each team might go over, 3 on why they might go under, and I'm going to give you the number of projected wins from my numbers. So let's go ahead and dive into it. We'll start off with the Appalachian State Mountaineers, App State, if you will. Current win total is 8.5. This thing opened at 7.5. Odds of plus 112 to go over. That's 47.17% probability. And minus 138 to go under. That is 57.98% probability. Conference odds are plus 270. That's an implied probability of 27.03%. Now, as far as why App State might go over their win total, they got an experienced quarterback. Joey Aguilar coming back. It's stellar season last year. Threw for over 3,700 yards, had 33 touchdowns. App State's offense is primed to be one of the most dangerous in the Sun Belt, especially with the fact that he's got his top 6 receivers also returning. Defensive improvement, right? Had a season of growing pains, but the defense brings back 15 out of 21 defenders who saw significant snaps last year. You got disruptive playmakers like Santana Hopper and Nate Johnson. Gives them the potential to make a substantial leap in their performance this year. And then number 3, you got a favorable schedule, right? App State projected to be a favorite, at least to me, in 10 games this year. And with their consistent ability to win close games in conference play, they've got a clear path to another 9 or maybe even a 10-win season. Now, as far as why they might go under that win total, the offensive line is rebuilt. You lost 4 starters on the offensive line. That includes the tragic passing of the standout Jack Murphy. There's significant concerns about protection for Aguilar. And the running game certainly has always kind of leaned on that offensive line. And they've got an influx of transfers, but we'll see exactly what they look like. Number 2, defensive inconsistency, right? While the defense returns a lot of key players, it has steadily declined over the past few years. And if they don't improve, they might continue to struggle against the run and stuff like that. It could cost you in, close ball games. And I expect a lot of close ball games here. And then, of course, regression from close wins. App State's tendency to rely on close wins, something like that could always backfire, especially if the offensive line doesn't gel right or if the defense doesn't make any expected improvements. It's going to be tough to replicate last season's late surge. As far as their conference rating, I've got them number 2 overall in the conference. I've got them number 62 nationally. And so we shall see. I say I've got them number 2 in the conference. Do I actually have them number 2 in the conference? I don't know why I would have put that note on there. Yeah, number 1 in the conference. You're not going to believe who I got number 1 in the conference. Good gracious. Anyway, projected wins, I've got them at 7.32. That is under the win total pretty significantly. Got them 10 games as a projected favorite. I've got 8 toss-up games. And those toss-up games, all of them I have within a touchdown. So only 1 guaranteed loss, but I got 3 guaranteed wins on the schedule, so that certainly helps things out. Next on the board, the Arkansas State Red Wolves. Current win total 6.5. That's the same as the opener. Hadn't moved. Odds of plus 148 to go over, and that's 40.32% implied probability. Minus 184 to go under. That's 64.79% probability. 1,600 plus 1,600 to win the conference. That's 16-1. Implied probability of 5.88% for Butch Jones as much. Now, as far as why they might go over the win total here, you got offensive continuity. Jalen Raynor, breakout freshman year, right? And you got skill position players, Jaquez Cross at running back, the wide receiver Corey Rucker. The offense is loaded with young talent and now some experience. They can use that to build on last year's kind of late season surge, right? You've got coaching stability. Both coordinators have now been with Butch Jones for all 4 years. That's a rarity in college football. It provides continuity in game planning and player development. it should help the team maintain the momentum that they created last year. And, of course, number 3, improved depth, right? You got key transfers like the quarterback Timmy McClain comes over from UCF, wide receiver Malik Hornsby. You got returning starters, all kind of stuff. Like, the team's depth is going to be good, especially on offense, and it gives them multiple options to, maybe surprise some opponents here. Now, as far as why they might go under, defense. Defense was abysmal last year. Ranks 127th nationally in total defense. And while there's some, returning experience, the loss of key players like their top sack leader could prevent significant improvement. You get into some high-scoring games, you could be in some trouble. The offensive line issues, season-ending injury to the starting center, Jacob Bayer. That's a major blow to an offensive line that already had question marks. If the line struggles to protect Rayner or open up running lanes, this offense might not get to its full potential. It might not even get to what it was last year. They've got a tough schedule. You got games against Michigan, Iowa State. Sun Belt slate's always grueling. This is we'll call it a challenging path to bowl eligibility. And even a slight dip in performance could lead to another season where they, fall short of their win total. I've got them rated number 100 in the country. Conference rating is number 10. Projected wins I've got for them is 5.44. But I know that they want to get over that for sure. You want to get to 6 wins because, by God, that bunch really wants to make a bowl game. 5 games as a projected favorite. 10 toss-up games. I've got 10 games on the schedule that are projected to be within a touchdown. That's insane. Absolutely insane. Coastal Carolina. The Chanticleers, right? Current win total 6.5. Has not moved. Odds of plus 128 to go over. That's 43.86% probability. And minus 158 to go under. That's 61.24% probability. Conference odds, 20-1 to win the Sun Belt. That's an implied probability of 4.76%. Now, why Coastal might go over the win total? You got potential at the quarterback position. Grayson McCall is gone. He's gone to NC State. They got some intriguing options at quarterback. Ethan Vasco showed promise in limited action last year. And then, of course, they bring in Michigan State transfer Noah Kim, who's got some experience. If one of these guys clicks, the offense could be just as potent as in recent years, even if it's going to look significantly different under Tim Beck. As far as transfer additions, Beck brought in FCS and Division II standouts. You got wide receiver Andre Jones, along with several defensive players. Those could pay off big if these lesser-known talents adapt pretty quick to this FBS level. If nothing else, it adds much-needed depth and some playmaking ability, and they certainly need that. And then, of course, it's a manageable schedule. It's not awful. You got 9 games projected to be within touchdown. 10 I've got projected to be within touchdown here. Coastal schedule offers plenty of winnable matchups, especially if they can maintain the late-season momentum from last year and avoid some key injuries. Because, again, we're not certain about the depth. Now, as far as why they might go under, you got significant turnover. Their top 2 offensive players, Grayson McCall and the leading receiver, Sam Pinckney. Then you got 3 starting linemen gone. That's big. That's big shoes to fill. And the new faces, we'll see about the chemistry, right? That's always the concern when it comes to transfers. You got defensive depth concerns. Only 7 of the 18 defenders who saw significant snaps last year are going to be back. Beck brought in several transfers, but again, FCS and D2 players, are they going to be able to immediately step up, right? This defense was already kind of shaky. We'll see what they look like. You got inexperience at key positions. You got significant turnover at quarterback, wide receiver, offensive line. And this is just on offense. Coastal could face some growing pains that result if you've got an inconsistent offense. It's going to be tough with this kind of a schedule, right? The early part of the schedule certainly looks easy, but you got to get to that win total. It's going to be rough. The early part, Jacksonville State, you're already an underdog there. But then you got William & Mary, Temple. You got Virginia at home. That's a big one. You got Old Dominion at home. Then you got to go to James Madison. You host Louisiana. You play at Troy. Or you host App State. It gets more difficult as the year goes on. Nationally, I've got them rated number 87. Conference rating is number 7. Projected wins, I've got them at 6.26, so that is slightly under. I've got them a favorite in 7 games, and I've got 10 toss-ups. There's going to be a lot of toss-ups in the Sun Belt. I'll go ahead and tell you that. I'm curious what Coastal is going to look like going forward as they move further away from the Jamie Chadwell offense. The Georgia Southern Eagles, current win total 5.5. That number has not moved. Odds of plus 110 to go over. It's 47.62% probability. And minus 134 to go under. That is 57.26% probability. Conference odds, 25 to 1 to win the league. That is 3.85% implied probability. As for why that might go over, offensive firepower. You got two productive running backs returning, Jalen White and O.J. Arnold. You got experienced receivers. Burgess is one of those. The offense has the potential to put up big numbers again, especially if they find, some kind of consistent quarterback play from Dexter Williams or I believe French ended up winning the job. But I think French probably won the job because he can actually throw the ball better than Williams. Williams, I think his completion percentage was like 30-something% at Indiana. Just rough. Defensive experience, right? The defense returns a large amount of experience, particularly in the front seven. You got playmakers Justin Rhodes and Isaac Walker. The continuity could help the unit take a necessary step forward. Like, they struggled bad last year. And then you got a coin flip schedule, right? A lot of games projected to be within a touchdown. If you got experience at the skill positions and, on defense, it could help the Eagles win some close games. Might get them over their win total. You got to not make stupid penalties. Don't turn the ball over, that kind of stuff. I mean, this is all basic. Clay Helton should know this. As far as why they might go under their win total. Okay, so you named a starter at quarterback, but this is the third starting quarterback in 3 years. The offensive success is going to hinge on a smooth transition. But if the quarterback struggles, offense is what they hang their hat on. So that's going to be a problem. Number two, defensive inconsistency. While the defense does return a lot of experience, it was one of the worst units in the country last year. And, if you got trash coming back, is it automatically better just because it's a year older? Not necessarily. So we'll see. And that's not to call anybody specifically trash. I'm just saying that defense as a whole last year, yeah, it was kind of trash. So yeah, we'll see. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to be improved, especially with concerns in the secondary, but we'll see. And then, of course, it's a tough schedule, right? There's a lot of toss-ups, a lot of coin flip games, but you got a lot of games where they're expected to be dogs. If you can't get in a rhythm on offense, if there's no defensive stability, that's going to be a problem. Their rating, I've got them number 99 in the country. I've got them number 9 in the conference. Projected wins, 5.34, which is slightly under. And I've only got them a projected favorite in 3 games, right? And 11 toss-ups. You see this. I've got them a toss-up with Boise State. I don't think that's going to be a toss-up game. My ratings are a little different this year. I'm very curious how these numbers are going to play out. But, you got Nevada and South Carolina State in week 2 and week 3. Those should be wins. But I've only got them about a field goal favorite at Nevada. That's bananas. Then you got Ole Miss. You got Georgia State on the road. James Madison's on here. South Alabama, I expect to be pretty good. Troy, Coastal, and then App State to close out the year. This is a rough schedule for Georgia Southern. I'm curious if Clay Helton makes it through the year, but we'll see. Maybe J.C. French is the real deal. The Georgia State Panthers, current win total 4.5, has not moved. Odds of plus 134 to go over. That's 42.74% probability, and minus 164 to go under. That is implied probability of 62.12%. Conference odds 48 to 1. They're not going to win the conference. It's a probability of just over 2%. Now, why they might go over their win total? You do have a really experienced coaching staff. Now, they came in late, but Del McGee, the new head coach, he brought in seasoned coordinators like Jim Chaney, Kevin Shearer. Right, Georgia State poised to benefit from their big-time P4 experience. They've been around a long time. Maybe it translates to immediate on-field improvement. We'll see. Then you got your transfer talent infusion, McGee's connections. He's a recruiter. Absolutely. And they pulled in, a significant number of talented transfers, especially a lot of guys from P4 programs, right? So I would imagine it elevates the talent on the team, fills a lot of key gaps across the roster. And then you've got defensive potential, right? You got contributors coming back like the linebacker Justin Abraham, cornerback Gavin Pringle. Combine that with the influx of new defensive talent, Panthers could see a lot of improvement on a unit that really wasn't good last year. Give them a better chance to compete in tight games. I think that's the biggest thing. Now, for what they might go under, quarterback uncertainty, right? You got a new coaching staff. You got multiple transfer quarterbacks coming in. There's a lot of risk that the offense is going to struggle, especially early in the year. Don't expect them to beat Georgia Tech, but you got Chattanooga and Vanderbilt, 2 winnable games. You got Georgia Southern in week 5 after a bye. Their bye is set up awful, by the way. You got a bye in week 3. You got a bye in week 5, which means that you're playing 8 straight games to end the year. That's certainly not good. Certainly not good. Offensive line concerns, right? You're losing key offensive linemen. That includes the top player who was drafted. So there's certainly some questions about the unit's ability to protect the quarterback and honestly establish the run, which I think they're going to try and lean on that quite a bit this year, even if they lost Carroll, the running back. Brutal schedule, of course. I mean, it's not brutal per se. There's not a lot of guaranteed losses on the schedule at James Madison, at App State, at Georgia Tech. Those are 3. But outside of that, I don't think there's anything that's too crazy. At Texas State is probably a loss. Aside from that, you got, like I mentioned, the early buys. You got a stretch of 4 consecutive road games at Marshall, at App State, at UConn, at James Madison. If you combine that with depth issues, I mean, this team could be worn down. They might just give up the ghost late in the season when you got to play offenses like Arkansas State, Texas State, and Coastal. That's going to be rough. Their rating, nationally, number 106. Conference rating is number 11. Projected wins are 4.76, so I've got them slightly over. Got them a favorite in 5 games, and then I've got 9 toss-up games. So a lot of games that we'll see. We'll see what this team ends up doing. All right, the James Madison Dukes. Current win total is 8.5. Odds plus 128 to go over. That's 43.86% probability. And minus 158 to go under. That is 61.24% probability. Conference odds are plus 750. So that is an implied probability of 11.76% to win the Sun Belt this year. And this is the first year that they are eligible to do that. But they're changing over coaches, so we'll see. As far as why they might go over the win total, number 1, you got a lot of transfers coming in. Bob Chesney comes in from Holy Cross. He brought in a slew of proven transfers. That includes Dylan Morris coming over, former P4 quarterback at Washington, 1,000-yard rusher, Ayo Adei, I believe from North Texas. I didn't put it in my notes, but I think that's right. Could keep the offense rolling, despite a lot of turnover here. You got strong defensive additions. The Dukes, I mean, they lost a lot, but they've reloaded. You got impact players. You got FCS standout linebacker Jacob Dobbs. You got disruptive defensive end Eric O'Neal, right? They got a chance to maintain their defensive dominance. And then, number 1, you got a favorable schedule. You got no games against the top teams from the Sun Belt. The schedule is, absolutely set up for success. They're going to get a chance to rack up some wins early on for sure, while adjusting to a new coaching staff and a new roster. Now, as far as why James Madison might not go over the win total, again, the roster, massive turnover here. You only got a few returning starters. 14 of 18 key defenders are gone. They're starting from scratch. So it's going to be difficult to replicate last year's success. You got coaching transition, right? Kurt Cignetti built the program's recent success anyway. Bob Chesney is fantastic, though. But bringing him in, it's a level of uncertainty, right, that they're not quite used to. You got an entirely new coaching staff that's trying to bring in their systems in just one offseason. Now, they've had plenty of time, but still. And then depth concerns, right? The starting lineup looks solid. The depth behind them is pretty thin. Any kind of injuries, that could derail the season quickly, right? Their rating, I've got them rated number 55. I've got them rated number 1 in the conference. Projected wins, I've got them at 8.64, so I've got them going over. I got them a favorite in 10 games. I got 4 toss-up games. But I see a lot of green on here. And that's games that I'm expecting them to win by more than a touchdown or more than 8 points, more than 1 possession. We'll call it that. I think the way that this schedule was set up, even that game at North Carolina, they're coming off of a bye, and they've got Ball State the week after. So it's not like they got to hold up and wait on some other team. Their average line, they are an average favorite of 8 points against the schedule. It's not too bad. Not too bad. They do play at App State. They do play at North Carolina. That's going to be kind of rough. But other than that, this looks like a pretty good schedule to me. All right, Louisiana Monroe, the Warhawks. Got a new coach in. Current win total is 2.5. That number has not moved. The odds are plus 140 to go over. That's 41.67% probability. And minus 172 on the under. That is 63.24%. So they do not expect this team to get to 3 wins. Conference odds, 350 to 1 to win the league. So they will not be winning the league. That's a probability of 0.28%. Now, as far as why they might go over their win total, they actually hired an experienced coach. Brian Vincent, he had a lot of success at UAB. He turned around a struggling program, did some good things at New Mexico last year, right? Had Dylan Hopkins at quarterback. Good things. Like the offense was able to, they beat Fresno at the end of the year. Like nobody would have expected that. The offense was not putrid at New Mexico, and it has been for a long, long time. So anyway, Vincent turned around a struggling program, or helped to anyway. Maybe he can do that at ULM, right? He's had experience in this. You got an infusion of transfers. You got 15 transfers coming in. The quarterback, General Booty from Oklahoma, he is going to be your starting quarterback. You got 4-star JUCO recruit Jaden Hamlin on defense. I mean, this team might surprise some of their opponents because they've got a roster filled with like overlooked talent. So we'll see. They've got a manageable early schedule. The early matchup against Jackson State, it's certainly winnable, should win. And if you can build some early momentum off of that, maybe you get a couple of unexpected victories later in the season. I don't know if they're going to be able to beat UAB, but they got them at home. Then you got at Texas, at Troy, James Madison, Southern Miss. Once you get to that point, but then later on in the season, it gets rough. As for why they might go under their 2.5 win total, a lot of turnover on that roster. They're near the bottom nationally in returning production. You only got 10 players back from last year. That's a team that's probably going to struggle, especially early in the season. So it kind of sucks that Jackson State is week 1, but there should be enough talent on the roster to be able to get that one at least. Significant talent deficit, right? Yeah, there's a lot of transfers coming in, but the roster strength has kind of declined if you look at the numbers. And I mean, they are still among the weakest teams in FBS. You're going to need some good systems here. So I hope Vincent's got some scheming up his sleeve because this Sunbelt Conference is tough. I mean, this is that late season slate of Texas State, Auburn, Arkansas State, and Louisiana. And that's after a trip to South Alabama and to Marshall. Yikes. That was what I was going to mention next is tough conference, tough schedule. I've only got them with one projected win. I've got them a projected favorite in one game against Jackson State. Southern Miss, maybe they could win. They've got that one at home. UAB, I've got as, they're going to be underdogs of less than a touchdown, I think. But aside from that, I mean, this is challenging. This is rough for ULM. Nationally, I've got them rated number 130. Their conference rating is dead last, number 14. However, based on win probabilities, I've got them slightly over, 2.74 for their win total. 2 toss-up games and one game as a favorite. I don't know where the win comes from. I don't know where they get these wins. But the number is so outrageous that I don't know if I could bet the under. So, either way, it is what it is. We move on in the action. The Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns. Win total sits at 7.5. That is the same as the opener, so it hadn't moved. Odds of minus 134 to go over. That is at 57.26%. And the under is at plus 110. That's 47.62% probability. Plus 550 to win the conference. That's 15.38% probability on that. As far as why they might go over their win total, all right, you got a lot of returning experience. You got the most returning production in the Sun Belt. That includes 9 defensive starters. You got a veteran offensive line. This team's got depth and experience to capitalize on some close games and push for a pretty strong season. As far as quarterback stability, they lost Zion Chris to Houston, who I think is going to fit brilliantly in Willie Fritz's offense, but neither here nor there. The Cajuns have got two experienced quarterbacks, right? Ben Wooldridge and Chandler Fields, both. They've played a lot. They are both capable of leading the offense effectively. You're probably going to get a consistent starter out of this. Now, they have a favorable late season schedule, so that sets up well also. You got 3 home games against Arkansas State, South Alabama, and Troy towards the end of the year. Your road game is at ULM to close out. I mean, you got a solid chance to rack up some wins in November when it really matters the most. Now, as far as why they might not go over their win total, they've had trouble in close games. 2-9 record in one-score games over the past 2 seasons. Their struggles in tight situations might continue because it might be more of a coaching issue than bad luck. Who knows? Key departures, of course, Zion Chris gone to Houston. You got not a lot of depth on that defensive line after you lose some contributors there. It might limit the team's upside, might leave them vulnerable in some of these critical matchups. And then, of course, coaching uncertainty. Head coach Michael DeSormo, he has not proven that he can get Louisiana back to what Billy Napier had them. And if they continue to falter in close games, might mean that DeSormo is not the long-term answer in Lafayette. But you never know. Their rating, I've got them number 76 nationally, number 4 in the conference. But I've got them at 6.53 wins, so I've got them going under with 9 games as a projected favorite, but 10 toss-up games. I've got 2 gimmies on the schedule, no guaranteed losses here, but, I mean, all of them are projected to be within a touchdown. So, at Coastal, at Texas State, at Wake Forest, and you got Southern Miss. You got your toughest games at home, but that includes games against Tulane, App State, Arkansas State, South Alabama, and Troy. I've got them favored in most of those games, but if I was just straight up picking games, I mean, I might go the opposite direction on this. So we'll see. Tickets to everything are expensive these days, and I know you're like me. You want to catch a big game or a concert, maybe even tickets to a show. Why not save some money every time you buy tickets? Visit Ticketsmarter.com or use the TicketSmarter mobile app and use the promo code WCE10, that's WCE10, to save $10 on any order of $100 or more, or use WCE20, that's WCE20, to save $20 on an order of $300 or more. It's not a one-time sign-up bonus or anything. Seriously, every time you buy tickets, you can save money on already great deals. So do yourself a favor. Think smarter with TicketSmarter. Next up, the Marshall Thundering Herd. Current win total is 5.5. On this one, same as the opener, so it hasn't moved. Odds of minus 134 to go over. That's 57.26%. And plus 110 to go under. That is 47.62% probability. Conference odds are plus 1,600. That is a probability of 5.88%. Now, as far as why they might go over their win total here, you got a strong transfer class, right? 30 incoming transfers. That's 18 guys from P4 schools. So Charles Huff doing what he needs to infuse some talent here to, fill in some of these roster gaps that they've got. Experienced playmakers. Despite the roster turnover, you got key returning players here. You got the wide receiver Harris. You got defensive tackles Leggs and Gibson Sr. It's going to provide a pretty solid foundation, you would think, especially on a defense that, with the right tweaks, with the right just messing around with a little bit, filling in some of those gaps, they could rebound pretty good there because they certainly got the talent. And then, of course, air raid potential. They bring in a new offensive coordinator, Seth Dagey. He's bringing in the air raid offense. They could catch some Sun Belt defenses off guard with this, especially with the fact that you got some pretty talented transfer quarterbacks coming in. Braylon Braxton, the headliner of that bunch, and those guys are going to be ready to step up and lead the charge there. Now, for why Marshall might not go over the win total, why they might go under, roster turnover. I mean, we talked about it being a potential good thing. You got 34 players leaving, only one returning starter on offense. But that offense wasn't good. Like, it's an uphill battle, right? Trying to figure out chemistry and whatnot, especially early in the year. I mean, you got a game at Virginia Tech. You got a game at Ohio State. Good to go and get those out of the way. But how much do you find out about yourself when you're playing a team like Stony Brook, who you should handle easily, and then you've got Virginia Tech and Ohio State right after that? You are not expected to win those games. So you got inconsistent coaching. Charles Huff's tenure, flashes of potential, but there's also been some lapses, right? Last season's collapse was certainly that. We'll see what the coaching ends up looking like. And then, of course, you got a tough schedule. It's a Sun Belt schedule, so of course it's going to be tough. But along with Virginia Tech and Ohio State, you're bringing Western Michigan in. Western Michigan has maybe top 5 returning production in the country. Just ridiculous. I don't know. It's a challenging non-conference slate. And you got a defense that went from number 17 in 2022 to 98th in SP Plus last year. Can the defense regain its form, especially with all the different transfers that are coming in? National rating, I've got them number 94. Conference rating is number 8. Projected wins, I've got them going under. I've got them 5.19. You see the 4.5 on the screen here. That is if you count 1 for the losses, or I guess 0 for the losses, and then I count half a win for each of the toss-ups. So 9 toss-ups, that's 4.5 wins. So it probably should be 5 wins. We'll give them a full win for Stony Brook because I think I had Stony Brook misrated on this. I'll check into it. But either way, so 5.19, so slightly under. 6 games as a favorite, 9 toss-up games. Might want to make that 8 toss-up games. But I've got a loss to James Madison on here too at the end of the year. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm curious about Marshall this season. Old Dominion. The Monarchs, current win total 4.5, odds of plus 116 to go over, that's 46.3% probability, and minus 142 to go under, that is 58.68% probability. Conference odds, 30-1 to win this league, that's 3.23%. I don't think Old Dominion is going to get there, but they might hit their win total. So let's see what they got. Returning continuity, right? You got the quarterback Grant Wilson back. You got 2 key receivers, most of the defensive front 6. You got a foundation of experience here that might help when it comes to close games. And again, it's a Sun Belt schedule, so there's going to be close games. So maybe they'll improve on last season's record. You got explosive play potential. Wide receivers, Kelby Williams, Dominic Dutton, they showed big playability last season. You got more experienced quarterback here with Wilson. Emmett Moorhead transferred in, and he comes from Boston College. Maybe he comes in. I don't know, but maybe you've got a capable quarterback, and Old Dominion could capitalize, right? Because Ricky Ronnie, he's got a knack for creating explosive plays. They are battle tested in close games, right? They played 11 one-score games in 2023, so they are used to tight situations that could translate into better results in 2024, especially in the Sun Belt where it's going to be nothing but a bunch of one-score games. Now, as far as why Old Dominion might go under, the secondary. It's in a state of flux. The top 5 players are gone from that unit. They're going to rely on sophomores and transfers, right? It's a lack of experience. Against pass-heavy teams in the Sun Belt, and there's several of them, like you play Texas State, Georgia Southern, and App State back-to-back-to-back. That's going to be rough. Then you got offensive line struggles, right? Old Dominion's offensive line gave up 62 sacks. That was worst in the country last year. If they don't improve in that situation, I don't know how any of the quarterbacks could ever be successful when they're on the behind all the time. So we'll see what happens. And then, of course, it is a tough schedule, right? They played in a lot of close games last year, but if the ball bounces the other way, how many of those do they win, et cetera? You got non-conference games against South Carolina and Virginia Tech. You play East Carolina, who's expected to be improved this year, and you've got a pretty challenging Sun Belt slate. You're playing at Bowling Green, which is not easy at all. I expect Bowling Green to win the MAC this year. So there's not a lot of easy wins on the schedule, if any. So they're going to need to overachieve to hit this win total big time. The rating, I've got them number 107 in the country. Conference rating is number 12. Projected wins, got them at 4.32, so I've got them slightly under. I've got them a favorite in 3 games. Less than a point favorite against Marshall. 1.5 points against Georgia Southern. 1.6 points against East Carolina. I could see them losing any of those games. And I don't Like maybe they beat Georgia State on the road. Maybe they just have more talent than Bowling Green. Maybe, but other than that, I mean, this is going to be tough to get to. I've got 9 toss-up games on here, but I don't expect it to go as well as it did last year. I'll say that. I will say that. All right, moving ahead. South Alabama. The Jaguars, current win total 6.5. Odds of minus 160 to go over. That is 61.54%. And then plus 128 for the under, 43.86% probability on that one. Conference odds, they're plus 1,000, 10 to 1. That is an implied probability of 9.09% on that. Now, South Alabama, for why they might go over their win total, you got Gio Lopez at quarterback. He had tremendous potential in limited starts last year. Big time spot in the bowl game. Like if he continues to develop under Major Applewhite, South Alabama could actually be upgraded at quarterback, and that's always a good thing. You got continuity in the coaching staff. You know, despite the fact that Kane Womack took the Alabama defensive coordinator job, Major Applewhite was the OC last year. He takes over as head coach, so you're going to have some continuity. You got coordinators Rob Ezell, who I don't know if you've ever seen his Nick Saban impression, but you should. And then, of course, Will Wyndham being promoted from within. This is probably going to help maintain the stability and the effectiveness of both the offense and the defense. And you got favorable scheduling, right? They're favored in, I've got them favored in 9 games. I mean, it's a manageable non-conference slate. You got North Texas, Ohio, Northwestern State, and LSU. Not going to handle LSU, but, I mean, they did go on the road and beat Oklahoma State like a drum last year. And so you got a chance to capitalize on the schedule this year. As for why they might go under, a lot of roster turnover. You only got 5 offensive starters back, and you got some major losses on defense. That includes 8 starters gone. So you got a steep challenge in maintaining, you know, not last year's, but, the last few years under Kane Womack. Doing this under a new head coach is going to be interesting. You got inexperience at key positions, right? You lost the quarterback Carter Bradley, running back LaDamian Webb, the wide receiver Colin Lacey, right? All these guys. The team's going to rely heavily on a lot of less experienced players. What does that mean for close games? Because there's going to be a lot of those. We'll see. And then, of course, uncertainty in the defensive production, right? The defense, which was a strength last year, you lost several key guys, and without some proven replacements, I mean, it might struggle to replicate its top 40 performance last year. Might lead to some more losses in the Sun Belt because all these teams are just right there rated on top of each other. As far as their rating, number 84 nationally, I've got them number 6 in the conference. Projected wins, I've got them at 6.14, so I've actually got them under. I've got them a favorite in 9 games, though. And that just goes to show you exactly how close the win probability on some of these games is. But 9 games as a favorite, and then 9 toss-up games. So 9 games that I expect to be within a touchdown one way or the other on this. Going to be difficult. Certainly going to be difficult. We carry on and we go to Hattiesburg, Mississippi for the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. Current win total 4.5. Odds plus 138 to go over. That is 42.04% probability. And to go under is minus 170. That's a probability of 62.96%. Conference odds are plus 4,800, so 48 to 1. That is 2.04% probability on that. 2% chance. I would even go lower than that because Southern Miss is not going to win the Sun Belt this year. As for why they might go over their win total, though, potential upgrade at quarterback, right? Tate Rodemaker comes in from Florida State. They could finally have some stability at that point. Will Hall has not once had a quarterback that he could really rely on. And this year, fingers crossed, he should. And he's actually pretty talented, right? So we'll see. It might lead to a pretty nice offensive boost here. Strong recruiting classes, like Will Hall brought in the best recruiting class in the Sun Belt last year. That includes SEC transfers, et cetera. It should elevate the overall talent. And they should have some immediate contributors on both sides of the ball. And then, of course, you got a favorable early season schedule. You got winnable games against Southeastern Louisiana, USF. I say winnable against USF, but that offense is something. And then, of course, you got ULM in the middle of the year. If you can build momentum early, you can reach 5 wins before the tougher part of the schedule kicks in November. As far as why they might go under, again, with the roster turnover, you got 2 offensive starters and 3 defensive starters returning. You got to find a way to rebuild this chemistry with a bunch of new faces. And, I mean, the good thing is you've got a new quarterback that you feel like you can rely on, so that's good. But, again, it's a bunch of new guys. Number 2, defense. I mean, they were number 126 in SP Plus last year on defense. You got a new secondary. You got a bunch of unproven players in key positions. Can they make the improvements that are needed in order to stay in some of these ball games? And then you've got a tough late season schedule. I mean, the back half of the schedule is just brutal. Like, you're going to, after Louisiana Monroe, you're going to bring in Arkansas State, who I think their offense is going to be clicking pretty good by then. I've got high hopes for Arkansas State, even though I've only got Arkansas State a 1-point favorite on the road at Southern Miss. But regardless, you're playing James Madison. You're playing Marshall at home. You got at Texas State, at Troy. Both of those I expect to be probably double-digit games. You're hosting South Alabama. We just talked about them. Like, I don't know where the wins come from on the back half of the schedule. So, if they don't capitalize early, like, that win total might be shot. Their rating nationally, I've got them at number 117. Conference rating is number 13, so second to last, or next to last. Projected wins, I've got them at 3.98, so I've got them under, with 1 game as a projected favorite. And I've got 7 toss-ups on here. So 7 games that should be within a touchdown one way or the other. Going to be interesting. Certainly going to be interesting. All right, the Texas State Bobcats. Current win total, 8.5. Odds of plus 108 to go over. That is 48.08% probability. And then minus 134 to go under. That is 57.26% implied probability. Conference odds, plus 360. So 21.74% probability on that. They are one of the favorites to win this conference. Now, for why they might go over their win total, G.J. Kinney, right? That high-octane offense. They were a top 40 offense in his first season. And then, of course, you bring in the addition of the Sun Belt Offensive Player of the Year from James Madison, Jordan McLeod at quarterback. The offense could be even more explosive in 2024. Then, of course, you got a strong returning core. You got key players coming in, well, staying in. What's the running back's name? Ismail Mahdi. I didn't write it down. I think that's right. I think Mahdi's the name. Anyway, 1,300-yard rusher coming back. You got top receivers Cole Wilson and Joey Hobert. 3 offensive line starters are back. Texas State's got the continuity and the firepower to score at will in the Sun Belt. They got a favorable schedule. I mean, absolutely. They're favored in nearly every game. I've got them a favorite in 9 games. Slight underdog at home to UTSA in week number 2. I've got them favored over Arizona State. Slight dog on the road at Troy. Other than that, this thing sets up pretty nicely. You got a well-balanced roster. You got a manageable schedule. I mean, it's a legit shot at winning the Sun Belt. So we shall see. As far as why they might go under, defense. Despite their offense, the defense struggled last year. They allowed 121 points in 2 games late in the season. You got a new coordinator. You got key losses. We'll see if they can shore up, some of the weaknesses that they had. You got the pressure of expectations. Right after a breakout season, Texas State is in a position that they have never been in. They're expected to win a lot of games now. What does that do if you lose at home to UTSA, if you lose at home to Arizona State, you're thinking you're going to get one of those games at least. Say you've got that game in Houston against Sam Houston State. What happens there if you lose that game? Because that's a team that a lot of guys are pretty high on. Like, say you've got some injuries pile up. There's no telling, right? And then, of course, you got some tough key matchups. You got games against Troy and South Alabama that are critical. If Texas State can't pull those off, reaching 8 wins is going to be tough if they can't get those. So their rating, I've got them number 81 in the country, which is odd to be talking about a team that could potentially make a playoff. But, I mean, that defense there's so many question marks. So it certainly brought their overall rating down, but I've got them at number 81 in the country. Conference rating, I've got them number 5. Projected wins, I've only got them at 7.51, so I've got them going under. But I've got them a favorite in 9 games, and I've got 9 toss-up games. So I'm expecting interesting things from Texas State this year. We move on to the Troy Trojans. Lower Alabama. Current win total is 6.5. Of course, that number has not moved. You got odds of minus 105 to go over. That is 51.22% implied probability. And minus 115 to go under. That's 53.49% probability on that. Conference odds, 16-1 to win the conference. Implied probability of 5.88% on it. Now, as far as why Troy might go over their win total, strong program foundation, right? You lost the coach and whatnot, but Troy's always had a history of bouncing back pretty quick with new head coaches. And, they've got a strong foundation. They've got a winning culture. They could exceed expectations even in a transitional year. You got offensive potential here. You got 3 returning offensive linemen. You got standout guard Daniel King is one of those. And, of course, you got a deep, stable running back. So Damian Taylor is a name to know there. The offense has the pieces to control the clock and maybe grind out some wins. And then you got home field advantage for a lot of this stuff, right? Key games against Sunbelt contenders like Texas State and South Alabama are both, never mind, South Alabama's on the road. Texas State and Coastal, Southern Miss, etc. Nevada's at home. So, it gives Troy an edge in what could be a close, season-defining kind of matchup in some of those. As for why Troy might go under the win total, massive roster turnover, right? Only 4 returning starters and a complete rebuild on defense. Not a lot of continuity here. And you got some interesting early games that might kind of derail things. You got an inexperienced quarterback situation. Goose Crowder, unproven at this level. You're going to need the quarterback to kind of calm the waters a little bit. So we'll see in some of these high-pressure situations what he looks like. And then you got a pretty tough schedule, right? Non-conference games against Memphis and Iowa, both on the road. You couple that with a challenging Sun Belt slate. Like, Troy is going to face a lot of uphill battles here. It's Parker's first year. Like, I don't think we're expecting the world, but, the rating, I've got them number 72. Conference rating is number 3. Projected wins, I've got them at 6.86. So I've got them slightly over. Favorite in 8 games and a toss-up in 7 games. I mean, Texas State at home, you get a bye before you have to go to South Alabama. I've got them as a underdog of 0.4 points. Favorite on the road at Arkansas State. At Louisiana, I've got them a slight dog. These are all games that they should be able to win. And we'll see exactly what happens from there. So, let's see. As far as the conference title game, let's go and switch back over to this. As far as the conference title game, I would not be surprised if James Madison found a way there. I mean, you guys saw I've got them rated number 1 in the conference here. The schedule lines up for them. The roster they've got is still, power rated really highly, and I don't think their coaching hire is a downgrade. But all that said, I'm going to go a different direction. I'm going to go App State, and I'm going to take Texas State to meet in the title game. And I'm going to take Texas State to win the Sun Belt because I like G.J. Kinney. Like, that's about it, really. I mean, the defense is not great, but I think his offense is going to flourish with Jordan McLeod. And that's a title game that could see a ton of points. It could turn into a shootout very quickly. And for some reason, like, I think I trust Texas State more. So I think G.J. Kinney is one of those rock star coaches that's going to be able to win anywhere he goes. The schedule sets up brilliantly this year, so I'm expecting big things. All right, let's go ahead and wrap it up. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, of course, and the pod. Make sure you're in the pod, of course. And if you want to help the channel keep growing, you can be a member over at bettingcfb.com. $5 a month, $50 for the year. A lot of bonus content over there. So, for Winning Cures Everything, God bless college football, and we will see you guys on the next preview. Thanks for listening to Winning Cures Everything. Make sure and follow me on Twitter at GaryWCE. If you want to toss in a question You can email me, Gary at winningcureseverything.com. Make sure and hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.